guys, welcome to another episode of TFL's Leaderboard, Hot or Not. And as always, I have Paul, our expert driver. And Paul, what did you call the X6 M? The like the Satan's spawn? What did you call it?
Yeah, evil twin. I don't know, but I was saying it was like a Hellcat that has similar to Hellcat levels of insanity as far as acceleration goes. But it's a high center of gravity and lots of grip and all-wheel drive.
So obviously today we're going to figure out whether that BMW X6 M is hot or not by first taking it around the racetrack and then by me spending a week behind the wheel and letting you know what I think of the car. Now, Paul, it's an interesting car because it makes no sense to me. It makes no sense. I get in the thing and all my senses are telling me I should be in a crossover that potentially goes off-road and that is meant to ferry around passengers. And it does none of that.
Yeah.
Zero.
It
none of
would
that.
potentially go off-road, just not intentionally go off-road.
As a Swiss Army knife, it is ultimately a capable vehicle. It does everything well. But there are better tools that you can buy that do the individual functions that this does much better. A GTR if you want a pure sports car. Range Rover if you want to go off-road in luxury. Now, do you want to use it as a crossover? Obviously, because of that sloping rear end, we're going to have a lot less usability at the back, a lot less cargo space. So you can get an X5 M and get more usability, same manner, same speed.
The X6 M is kind of this coupe that's really up high. And I think when you look at it, it's absolutely bonkers the numbers that the vehicle does produce. But you make a great point. It doesn't really fit into a category very well because it's not a performance car. It's certainly not a SUV in the normal sense or a truck. So yeah, what is it?
Yeah, and I've been really struggling this week behind the wheel trying to figure out whether it's hot or not. Before we show you the lap time, let's show them the 0 to 60 time because that was...
Okay, X6 M, 0 to 60. Put my head against the headrest so I don't end up with chiropractic issues at the end of this. All right, there you go. 3.95 seconds to 60 at altitude. That is incredibly quick.
0 to 60 in that thing, and I have to say, if you ever get a chance to experience the launch of one of these, it's worth it. It's a good ride. It comes off the line just like a rocket ship. It's all spooled up and in the boost, and 0 to 60 was in 3.95 seconds at our altitude.
Which is faster than the F-Type
That's
R
right.
that we tested. It's
Yeah.
faster than the Hellcat. It's faster than the M2. It's faster than, well, any car that we've actually ever tested. Once again, you get behind the wheel, and even to launch it, there's a lot of buttons and magic that has to happen, right? When I go off-road, and I'm in a car that, or a SUV that has one of those terrain management systems, you know, where you could pick mud or sand or rocks, and I get stuck, I just want a button that says, get me unstuck. And that's how I feel about this button. I just want a button that says, I want to go fast.
Yeah.
Not like 2 different M buttons, which there are, 3 different buttons that control the steering, the suspension, and the ride.
Yep.
And a button that turns off the traction control. There's just way too much technology.
Yeah, and that's so common in cars today, where I just like a car where you can just jump in and drive it these days. And not that you're necessarily turning a lot of that stuff off on the road, so it depends on the context of using the vehicle. But for, if you want a car in a sport mode and all that, now there is a nice setting in there where it does have a couple programmable buttons.
Yeah,
on the
M1,
wheel.
M2.
And the Hellcat was kind of the same way too. You get up on the screen, you got to turn off things here. So that's just, modern cars are like that, unfortunately.
All right, well, we've kept you in suspense long enough, so let's go to the track and see how it went. Voila! It's a 4.4 liter monster twin scroll, twin turbo that puts out 567 horsepower and just around 550 pound-foot of torque. It's all mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission with paddle shifters, and of course it feeds power to all 4 wheels. This is about as brawny as a BMW gets. Now we're running some really beefy summer tires, Michelin Pilot Super Sports, and what's really cool about these tires, unless you're buying them of course, is that they're offset. In the front we've got 285/35 on 21-inch wheels, but in the back these are steamrollers, 325/30/21s. I mean, that's about as fat as a tire gets on an all-wheel drive car.
Big lag in the shift, and a kind of a playful rear end in this car, and it really moves around with all that power. So it's all-wheel drive, sliding across the hump there and picking up inside tires. I can feel that as I go across. Back on the gas here, let's see how she does here. Again, loads of power, pretty good grip, huge Michelin Pilots on this car. So it's a high center gravity vehicle, but it's got loads of grip, and it feels a little unnerving, to be honest, to be up this high in a vehicle that's cornering this aggressively. You can feel it bouncing. Maybe you can see that on the camera, but it's just bouncing with the inside front tire and rear tires sometimes coming off the ground on this thing as I go. The steering is very artificial, but very fast. So you're basically pointing and squirting in what is a very, very violent video game as you go across the track here. I'm gonna maybe guess it was in the 106 or 7 range. 104.37.
Our second fastest lap.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Paul, I was actually filming you going around that track, and it was hilarious. It was loud. The car was left, right, up, down. I mean, it just did everything a car could potentially do except for fly.
Yeah, and it did a little bit of flying. It was picking up wheels here and there, and I feel like I'm now qualified to be on the Pro Rodeo Tour, so that's kind of a plus coming out of driving that thing around. But absolutely a bonkers, insane vehicle to take around the track because, again, it's so fast in its acceleration, and it's got big old Michelin grippy tires on it. I'm not even going just side to side or backwards and forwards in the seat. There's a lot of up and down because you're getting kind of tossed around because of the, higher than a road car center of gravity.
Now, people might be thinking our racetrack is pretty small for a car like that as compared to, say, the Nürburgring. But there's an interesting fact that we found out when we took both the M2 and this around our track. Tell them what that is. Yeah,
and kind of looked that up, and what we found out is that we've got a 758 that the M2 did around the Nürburgring, and the X6 M does an 820. And that really correlates well for what our lap time differential was between the vehicles here, where the M2 was still the faster vehicle. And it sort of proves that handling is handling and balance is balance, and it doesn't really matter what type of track you take the vehicle on. You should find a correlation, and we certainly do here with our track versus other racetracks.
In order for me to actually call it hot, it has to be 100% in every category. And all of a sudden, I get into the car, I'm completely baffled by that little weird gear selector, which BMW decided to reinvent. There's the e-brake, which sometimes comes on, sometimes doesn't come on. And it's like technology sitting on top of technology, sitting on top of this wonderful car. And so that's why I'm of two minds. So at the end of the day, it's one of those cars that's like 80% hot, but 20% not. Where this car really shines is when you use it as a GT. It will just cover prodigious amounts of space and miles and kilometers in comfort. It won't necessarily hold the most. It probably won't go off-road. It'll probably get its clock cleaned by a GTR. But if you just want to use it as a Grand Tour, sit back, relax, not be afraid of what the weather throws at you because you have all-wheel drive, then this is the perfect car.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about it, and especially if we look at it in the context of just running the M2 recently and saying that's a hot car. I mean, it checks all the boxes, it does everything right. And I think part of what we loved about the M2 was its simplicity and its honesty. You know, where it was an honest car to drive and it was a simpler car to set up, and it didn't suffer from an excess of bells and whistles that don't really add to the driving experience.
Yeah, and so in order for me to make it hot, right, it has to be 100% hot, and so I fear I'm going for not. It's a wonderful car, but it's a frustrating car, and because of that, I'm going for the not. How about you?
I'm going to agree with you on that. I think it's a heck of an engineering exercise, but I think they did, instead of just saying, you know, should we build this thing or not, they said, we can, let's do it.
So next week we go from our
Ooh, I made it.
one of our fastest cars to one of our most fuel-efficient cars, and it's that one right there. It's the brand spanking new Honda Civic Coupe. Now, of course, it's not a track car.
No.
But it is the fastest Honda you can currently buy in America. Well, at least the fastest Civic you can currently buy. So we're going to take it around the track. I'm going to spend a week with it. And as always, it's Roman and
Paul
saying thanks for watching, and check out more episodes of TFL Leaderboard, because right now we've done 5 cars. So if you're interested to see what the fastest car around the track was, it's not that one. Just check it out. And what we found out is interesting. After we tuned it, this engine is almost identical in horsepower and torque to this engine. Now the question is, which of these two is faster? Well, Paul's the one who's going to have to find that out.
Little sluggish off the line, then it suddenly builds boost. And then into the first corner. I like the brake feel, and the car has pretty good grip when you turn in. And the steering's pretty decent on this car, so it's nice steering. Bottoms out a little bit over the compression after our little jump there.